Hi, I'm Em Rusciano, and as I've told you many times this season, I'm a writer, singer, stand-up comedian, and perimenopause is kicking my ass. So I did something about it. I brought you a 6-part series called Rage Against the Vagine. We launched with a prologue back in August, followed by a weekly episode drop covering the who, what, when, where, how, and why of the f***ery that is perimenopause. But before that, way back in April, I recorded a little time capsule with my producer. Here's the elevator pitch I did for the podcast before a single episode was even made. If you're, in your late 30s to early 50s and you feel like your life has gone to shit and you are no longer driving your brain, if you're angry or tired or depressed or anxious, everything hurts, you're putting on weight, although you haven't changed what you're eating, you've stopped sleeping, you suddenly can't put up with everyone's shit anymore. If all of these or even just half of these apply to you, have I got the podcast for you? This podcast centers the experiences of people born with ovaries. You'll hear us use words like women and AFAB people. And sometimes we use women more often because that's how these conversations are usually framed. But we want to be clear. Perimenopause and menopause also affects trans, non-binary and gender diverse people. This conversation is for all of you. Rage Against the Vagine was recorded and edited on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We honour the cultural strength, sovereignty and resilience of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and acknowledge their continuing connection to land, sea and community. Hello, and thanks for coming back one last time for Season 1. We started this journey with a prologue, your rage warm-up. Now that all 6 episodes are out in the world, it feels only right to bookend that with a warm down, a postscript. As you heard off the top, about 5 months ago, I recorded a time capsule to lock in the intention, the vision, the hopes, even the fears I had for this series. Today, we're opening that time capsule together. I don't have a proper script or a clear plan for this one. I just wanted to debrief with you, to reflect on what we've learned, what we missed, where we're headed next. But first, back to where it all began. Let's see what April Amelia thought she was getting herself into. The very first question I was asked was, with so much already on my plate, why was Rage Against the Vagine a hill I was prepared to die on? I'm at a loose end. I'm looking for ways to fill my time. Yes, this is a project that I genuinely don't have the time to make, but it is a project that is shouting at me and waving its little hand at me, and it simply cannot be ignored purely for the fact of how disruptive this topic has been and still is in my life. And I can't ignore it. I simply can't ignore it. And given the demographic of my community, every day hundreds of women and AFAB contact me or leave a comment on a video or letting me know that they're also really not sure what to do. And especially at the moment, there's so much information out there now, and there is a new breed of menopause influencers or women's health social media gurus, and there's a lot of conflicting stuff out there. And I also know a lot of my community are neurodivergent, and you can often feel overwhelmed when all the tabs get opened on a topic that's affecting you and you're not sure which one to address first because of the executive function of it all. So I would like to try and make a resource like I did with Anomalous, where it's really stripped back and delivered in a way that isn't overwhelming. And also I need to forensically understand things so I understand myself better. And sometimes I do take that too far and pathologize myself to death. But it helps me feel less out of control when I have all the information to put myself into context in certain situations. So this project is she's demanding that I make her, and so I'm fitting it in. And I know, I'm on the front line of women experiencing this, and, every single woman or person who has ovaries will go through this, and no one's really especially focusing on the most confusing part, which is the perimenopause, because we know menopause, a year after you get your last period, that's it. Like, you can diagnose it. The menopause has come, you're done. But with the peri, it's so, you can't pin it down. There's no blood test. There's no urine test. There's a checklist of symptoms maybe. It could start when you're in your late 30s. It could start when you're in your late 40s. Some GPs don't really believe in it. A lot of women don't want to talk about it. And I think that was my focus, was the 10 years leading up to menopause seems to be the worst time for women, because we know what menopause is and when it happens, but the 10 years leading up to, there's a lot of conjecture. My goodness. Wasn't April M so energetic? She was still capable of pretending everything was okay. You'll hear I now sound like Patty and Selma throwing to Marge. Honestly, it could be two different people. I think that we did stay true to the origins and the purpose, because, and I do want to say, when I commented that 1 year after your period finishes, menopause is ushered in and you're done. Of course you're not done. Of course, now your body is completely devoid of all the helpful hormones, and you still have to deal with that deficiency and just aging in general and all the that comes with that. So, but I guess I meant menopause is more confidently diagnosed. And if you can go to a doctor and say, well, it's been a year since my last period, they'll be like, well, you've got the menopause. You're in the menopause. Let's go. But I really found the perimenopause aspect of it all like mystifying and like holding sand, very similar to getting an ADHD diagnosis. Nobody can agree on what the symptoms are and how they present, and if you are in fact ADHD, and it's just because there's no one test, right? Because we're relying on a whole bunch of things coming together. So I think we did that. I think we shone a light on the part of, a woman in AFAB's life that has long been just assumed to be like a natural part of aging. And as we discovered, there's nothing natural about it. I did reference my podcast Anomalous, and that was my version of what, you've all just gone through with Rage Against the Vagine for neurodivergent people. It was a love letter to the neurodivergent community and a roadmap for the neurotypical people, who care for them and love them. And I think Rage Against the Vagine will fill the same spot, but it's also been more than that. And the Rage Committee giving us their voices and their stories, their passion, and also all of our experts lending us their wisdom and research. It all came together in a way I didn't really know that it could. And that's mainly because of Tara, my executive producer, who's sitting over there quietly trying not to laugh into the microphone. Thank you, Tara. Yeah, it did make me realise that my projects have a real common theme. So it's very Barbara Streisand. Let's throw back to hopeful, happy, warm Em in April. Normalising things that we've been told to feel shame around has become a kink of mine, because I reject the idea that women should feel shame for simply existing. And so much of the way we walk through world as women and AFAB is wrapped up in shame. From the moment we become aware of who we are in society and where we sit, be a good girl, be quiet. Boys get encouraged to be adventurous and brave, and girls get told to be good and make things easy for other people. We become people pleasers from a very young age. And then you do hit 40 and you look back and see all the ways in which you have betrayed yourself because society told you you had to be a certain way, and you get angry. So the best weapon against anger and shame is truth and light, and the way you make that happen is by talking about it so much that it just becomes a part of everyday life. So that's why I tackle the topics I do, but mainly because it's my lived experience. I understand what that feels like. And if you can stop that from happening to the women of your generation and the ones to come, then it's makes all the fart jokes and the self-inflating penises, all that stuff, it all ties in, but it's why I do what I do. It gives me a sense of purpose. And I know what it is to feel great shame about as soon as you step out the door, who you are is wrong and you're something to fix. So many women are made to feel like we got to fix stuff about ourselves instead of take care of ourselves. So it's shifting that narrative around a woman looking at herself in the mirror and seeing a fixer-upper, which is so often the case. I have been banging the self-care drum for a while now, and especially if you came to see my show Outgrown, the whole thread of the needle, the whole purpose of it was the reflection and wondering of, imagine if women and AFAB were encouraged to put as much time into caring for themselves as they are putting into improve themselves, fix themselves, pathologize themselves. Imagine if that was flipped on its head and instead we were, focusing all that time and energy into just caring for ourselves. And I think the experts back that message up. It's the hardest thing to get people like us to do, because from the get-go, you're made to feel like that's selfish, self-serving. You're told being a martyr is the way to mother, and it's just not. It makes you a worse mother in the end. And I genuinely wish and hope that many of you examined the ways in which you can get that self-care in and put yourself first. And it's just tiny little micro things. It's putting food on your plate first before you give it to everybody else. It's if you need to have a shower to reset yourself, not waiting until you've done the washing or just done the few things. That's always going to be there. The chores are a circle. They're not a straight line. And the moment you realize that, I'll tell you, it's never going to end. You're never going to get to a point where you feel guilt-free to go and look after yourself. Interestingly, when we recorded the time capsule, we still didn't have a major sponsor. What If hadn't fully signed on yet. And we're very thrilled that they did, because it was very difficult to find advertisers that I was comfortable unleashing on you and allowing them access to you, because I am really protective of you all. And I wanted to find a partner who wasn't out to exploit you or make you feel even worse or offer you snake oil or magic fixes, because there's none. And What If felt like it was directly tied to that self-care message. It did seem left of center, but then when I explained my reasoning and they agreed and we all looked at each other and thought, yeah, this is a simple kind of thing that you can do. Not only does it allow for some self-care, but they do all the heavy lifting. They take a lot of the executive function away. So in the end, it felt right, and it was right, and it worked. So thank you to What If for coming on board, because a lot of people felt that this topic was too niche to cover and wouldn't appeal to all the sectors. Yes, advertisers refer to you all as sectors. And if you can appeal to all, I think it's 4 quadrants. No, they refer to you as quadrants. That's right, not sectors, quadrants. Speaking of quadrants of things, the categories of things keeping me up at night. Look, and I think you all know, and I've said this enough, there's a real risk when you stick your neck out and lend your voice, your face, your tears, your darkest thoughts to something like this. Because in my line of work, I'm not really supposed to age. I'm not supposed to concede to it. I'm not supposed to acknowledge it or look like it's happening. I've just got to stay smooth and young and energetic until I just disappear from your screens, phones, computers, hearts, minds, souls. But not only the aging part in the entertainment industry, but when you get into the science behind perimenopause. So, there's the one risk of associating yourself with aging. The other risk is entering into anything around health, but also an area that monetizes women's suffering at this time in their lives. It's murky waters. And then when you just go, right, well, let's just look to science because it's black and white. Even when you get to the science, thanks to the patriarchy and years of neglect, there's not a great backlog of solid information. And what does exist is kind of riddled with contradiction and infighting, to be honest, in some circles. We kicked off Rage Against the Vagine actually just after I'd come back from a menopause summit in Sydney, where I saw kind of firsthand how chaotic it all was. There were researchers and clinicians arguing, symptom lists that didn't line up, people were talking over the top of each other, and What I saw was science dismissing real stories in favor of stats. And look, it's risky because speaking about something that's still evolving, while we were editing together episodes, the science was evolving. There were so many add-ins and extra interviews done because now it is getting some attention. We're finding out that some things need updating. But for me, the biggest thing keeping me up at night was closer to home. I saw it when I was catching up with people who are, in my industry, women well in the menopause sweet spot, but they were clearly struggling and just refusing to connect the dots. I'd bring it up. They'd be saying, look, I'm tired. My shoulder hurts. I'm angry. I've stopped sleeping. I've put on weight. I don't know what's going on with my body. I feel like it's falling apart. And I'd be like, well, have you thought about perimenopause? And oh my goodness, it's like I took a shit on their ancestors' pride. They'd be like, no, I'm busy. I've got the kids, hectic at work. I'm just stressed. It was basically anything other than what it probably was. And I saw them not wanting to be associated with something so riddled with the stigma of being old and, of course, considered unbelievable. Here's me in April again. I think the main thing keeping me up is women and AFAB not being aware of their own internalized misogyny around the idea of aging. And I know so many women who are just blocking out this conversation, not absorbing information, specifically saying, no, this is not me, because they feel attacked by the idea that they could perhaps be in perimenopause or menopause. And the idea if you feel attacked about something that is biologically natural and that happens to everybody, if you feel like that devalues you in some way, that is your internalized misogyny and the systems that patriarchy have set up in play. So it's a really complex situation that I can make the most beautiful podcast in the world and I can deliver all the information I want, but if women are recalcitrant into or just completely not wanting to take it on board because they don't want to be associated with it because we don't allow women to age, then I'm screaming into the void. So the main function of this podcast is to reach those women who are struggling in their life but refuse to or feel threatened by putting it in the category of hormone issues. They're my audience. That's the demographic and age of women and AFAB that I can access and make the most difference for. Because if you're already involved in the trenches and doing the research and on the journey with me already, then I'm preaching to the choir. And that's great. We'll keep finding stuff out together. But I'm interested in the probably 75% of women between 40 and 50 that don't want a bar of it because they feel like that puts them, an age marker on them. And we've made women feel like if they get to a certain point, they're no longer valuable. So I think that's the thing I'm most focused on is reaching women who are suffering unnecessarily but refuse to kind of align themselves with the 99% certain reason why. I just want you to know 100% of the stats I mentioned them were guesstimations. They just felt right at the time. But I guess this is my point now, and my main purpose and goal is to remind you to share this podcast. And as I've always said, it could be like a little passive-aggressive meme in podcast form. So yeah, share it with your mum, your boss, your colleagues, your neighbours, your accountant, anyone who makes eye contact with you. As I wisely said back in April, I think it's just awareness. I think it's every age group engaging with this. This isn't an old lady problem like so many of us believed for so long. This is about validating the generations of women that came before us. Like, I hope that rather than feeling ripped off and annoyed that we are making noise about it, I hope that our mother's generation feel a sense of pride and relief that we won't be going through what they went through. I think it's a way of us looking at them and saying, yeah, babe, I'm so sorry you had to suffer. I mean, you must have gone through fucking hell and you must have felt so alone, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, there's just that giving the boomers and the generations, the builders that are still here, a big collective hug and looking them in the eye and saying, girl, well done on surviving that. Let's go back to something I was asked in the time capsule about the men in our lives.
Now, if you could look every bloke, husband, boss, GP, son, in the eye, what would you want them to understand about the perimenopause experience?
I mean, when you're talking to men, you have to make it an extension of them, as we know. Sometimes to get a man to care, you have to position the woman to how they sit in his universe. I guess when I go into workplaces especially, I generally ask the question, hey, has the woman over 35 in your life suddenly become a different person? And I watch the men in the room prick up. And I say, is she a bit more short-tempered? Has she said things like, I'm not putting up with your shit anymore? Has she stopped wanting to cook the family meal? Has she suddenly realised that the domestic load is incredibly unfair? Are you walking on eggshells around her? Are you worried about her? Is your life harder now because she's suddenly not able to do all of the things she's always done until now? And then when they're pretty much answering yes to everything, I then explain the very simple phenomenon of lack of estrogen and what that does for a person who needs it desperately. And generally, they seem relieved. So this podcast especially is going to be something that women can sit down with the men in their lives, and be it a boss, a colleague, a son, a husband, whatever, however men show up for you in your life. I'm making this for you to give to them, because a lot of the stuff I'm going to say, you're going to be like, yeah, I know. But you know, when you send like a passive-aggressive meme to somebody that the person in the meme is doing the exact annoying thing that, and you find that's the software. This is going to be a podcast version of a passive-aggressive meme. It's going to be a way for you to feel seen, and also an accessible way for you to give the information to the people who need the information, who can assist you in making your life better, who can cut you some fucking slack, who can understand that they can no longer treat you as the therapist, the curator, the travel agent, the chef, the psychologist, the taxi driver, that you can no longer fulfill those roles because you're fucking exhausted all of the time. So I think for me, you know, and it's not very feminist of me, but I always find the best way to get the message to men is to explain how it will make their lives easier. Okay, so on this, a lot of you have told me you have shared the podcast with the men in your lives. And to my absolute surprise and delight, we even had a man write something on Spotify. A singular man. I went through every single comment. And it's from David on Spotify, and he wrote, "Thank you so much for creating and sharing this. The insight into what my life partner, who shared this with me, is going through has been, I lack words, startling, emotional, insightful, important, etc., but mostly important. Massive thank you." David, good for you, babe. That kind of feedback, look, it does mean everything, because reaching the men, my God, it's not easy. But I also need to acknowledge I did go pretty fucking hard at the patriarchy. Sometimes this series was an onslaught of symptoms, systems, and maybe even a little critical or scathing towards cis het men. Maybe I laughed too hard at things like this from Dr. Yvonne.
Dr. Lisa Mosconi is a prominent neuroscientist that demonstrated that the brain has estrogen receptors. Anyway, in her research, she showed that during menopause, a woman's brain just goes down to the functioning of a man's brain. So maybe we should have more sympathy for men. I don't know. They're dealing with these brains that are just like...
But I always say, poor men. So yeah, look, at times, this podcast may have felt jarring, maybe too long, maybe too preachy for the boys. And that's okay, because men aren't my core audience. I did want them to get around it, but not to the detriment of any of you, because this was mainly about you all feeling validated. I wanted you to walk away with the information, the words to advocate for yourself, and a sense of community, because that's always been the heart of this series. But I also realised there's still a piece missing. We need something short, sharp, and simple to hand to the men in our lives, our guy friends, partners, brothers, sons, colleagues, so they can actually get it and show up for us. And part of me was like, no, fuck those guys. I'm doing enough of the heavy lifting for them. They can go and Google it themselves. But then the kind of practical part of my brain that isn't steeped in radical feminism is like, but that's never going to happen. And I really want change. I do. So there's the ideal of, no, I've done enough. If you cared enough about your partner, go look it up. But then there's the fucking reality. I know, straight men. And I'm not saying all straight men, but I fuck enough of them. So we're going to make a For the Men episode 30, a tight 30. I've convinced an AFL footballer to voice it with me. A very big one who's a fan. His wife listens to Rage Against the Vagine because she works for my management. She's married to this footballer and he has listened to every episode, started following me on Instagram. Very big deal. You know, I'm right up on the football concerts and he's agreed to voice it. So don't worry, as soon as it drops, we'll let you know and then it is up to you to disseminate it to the men. Maybe I'll take out some ads on Triple M. Just like bust in. They'll be like, why the fuck let her loose on this channel? As you know, this project has carried the voices of our Rage Committee throughout, comprised of around 1,000 women and AFAB people who completed surveys, they did the homework, lent their voices, and honestly really helped shape the whole thing. And it's something I'm really proud of because it means this hasn't been a self-indulgent rant from me about how tough things are. I mean, there's been a lot of that. But other people's voices has perhaps softened it a little. It's been a collective roar, a fact-finding mission, and ultimately a demand for systemic change. So I also wanted to hear from the committee, what were their learnings? What were their aha moments? What were their breakthroughs?
The main thing that this podcast taught me was the link between suicidal ideation and perimenopause. When I was 19 and my nana was 55, we lost her to suicide. And we all just put it down to bad mental health. And this podcast has taught me the link between all of it. And it's given me some closure and it's given me hope. So it's quite possibly saved my life. So thank you. Thank you so much, Em.
I would say the main thing that it has taught me is that I have done the right thing. I blew up my life earlier this year because I'm sick of being the person who just was always agreeable and always just did the right thing by everybody else. And I just love hearing all of the people we're all talking about and working through this. So it's just awesome.
My aha moment was remembering my mum being terrified that HRT was going to give her cancer. I really hope things start to change because of this and all the other awareness that's out there.
Women matter. We need to scream it. We deserve better. We need to demand better.
What really surprised me was the volume of resources that are actually available and the amount of people out there working to actually do something.
I went through cancer treatment last year and that involved surgery, a uterectomy. I refuse to say hysterectomy because of the patriarchy. And I didn't get time to get used to menopause. So now I'm learning about it and it's all thanks to Em and the team. Thank you.
It's made me feel truly seen, like I'm not alone, not overacting, and definitely not going insane.
I feel validated and I feel inspired to take action and get help and speak up for myself and my sisters.
My main takeaway from the series is she's out. The genie is out of the bottle. We can't shove the genie back in the bottle. She's too sweaty, she's too angry, she can't fucking hear because her eustachian tubes are dysfunctional. So it's out there, it's going to help people, and we're not going back.
This and the feedback across my socials, Spotify and Apple Podcast comments, emails, DMs, all the ratings. Honestly, I can see that it landed where it needed to and that so many of you felt like it was a light in the dark, and it is very dark, as you all know. The big thing is that it's proof that we're changing the conversation together. This was the actual goal, as told by hopeful, optimistic April M. So I think success will be how many people actually download and stream the thing. And I say that with the caveat of success for me, obviously, is if I just get one DM that says, I listened to Rage Against the Machine and I now feel like I can get out of bed tomorrow and I've got some kind of plan where before this I felt completely at sea. Of course, that is success for me. But if I'm being absolutely honest, if I can see that hundreds of thousands of people have taken the information in, then I know that they will tell maybe one or two people, which means the information and the whole point of making this, which is to affect societal and cultural change and conversations around perimenopause, it means that I have begun that conversation and I'm reaching, it's the numbers game, I'm reaching as many people as possible. Okay, well, we've had well over 100,000 downloads and listens to this podcast. And I can kind of see that around, I think 75, 80,000 individual people have already heard it. So tick, good for us. But we do need a groundswell. I want to see that number. I want it in the millions. I want to crack the States. I want to crack the UK. I just need you all to spread the word. We need groundswell, as I said, or as Leanne Mulheron from Affinity Psychology put it,
I want a menopause Me Too moment.
And here's a little behind the scenes context for you. The reason Leanne said that was because when I interviewed her, and some of you have seen some of the footage from this interview, I was having a very tough time of it that day. And we almost didn't put the interview to air. We almost rescheduled. I had to have several heaving sob breaks. Not ideal, not professional, but luckily that is Leanne's actual profession. But I'm glad we left it in. And if you haven't heard it yet, here's what it sounded like in the moment.
Leanne, thank you very much. I apologise for all the crying.
It's an occupational hazard. I'm very used to it. Absolutely no need to apologise.
I know, but this wasn't meant to be a therapy session. This was an interview, a professional interview.
An absolute pleasure. And thank you for your honesty and your rawness. This is what I want to see. I want a menopause Me Too moment where everyone gets up and they just talk about this shit. They legitimise it. They normalise it. This is what we need to see.
Yeah.
Obviously not at the cost of you, but this is what, people being authentic. That's what we need to see.
And she's right. That's what this project has been about. Honesty, rawness, taking up space so that what we're living through is legitimised, normalised. But I can't stop here. Sharing this podcast matters because every listen, every conversation, every reshare chips away at the systems that have ignored us for too long. Because when partners and workplaces, doctors, policymakers hear these stories, it becomes harder for them to look away. That's how cultural change starts. So please keep passing it on. I mean it. I'm not getting paid per listen. I'm not getting paid per download. I more care about this reaching as many people as humanly possible. And I don't have a big corporation behind me. It's just me and poor old Tara over there working the job of 15 people. Zeke's doing the editing, but that's it. So please, at the end of this episode, 5 people, 10 people, let's go crazy. I hinted before that you'll get to see more of Leanne and hopefully more of all of our guests because we had well over 15 hours of content to work with. And that's just interviews, not all the in-betweeny bits of me talking. That is just solid gold information. And it was all brilliant because, my God, the time and effort these people gave us, these intelligent, empathetic, generous experts, we couldn't fit it all into season 1 because I wanted that to be more like a toolkit. And if I had have given you the onslaught of information like that in one big block, it would have been overwhelming. It would have defeated the purpose. So we're going to hopefully surface all the gold in season 2. There's still work to do around budgets and funding. But trust me, there's so much good stuff to come. Here's just a little taste of some of my favourite moments you haven't heard yet. Some about Perry, some about life, and some just brilliant wisdom and personal stories from some amazing people.
It's because we're so damn powerful at that time, and because of the whole no fucks given, we start speaking up, like the rare ones that do become the wise women and the truth tellers, and they're just so obviously powerful. It's almost, it is a bit scary. Even as a woman who loves other women and is pro-goddess, even I meet those women sometime and go,
We just started developing our own code for when you were just having those rage days. And it came down, interestingly, to those 3 words, throat punching day. Yeah, and that's all we need to say.
I love it.
It is not my job as an Indigenous health activist working in, health justice to actually educate everyone. That's not my role. No. I actually argue that it's actually the role of non-Indigenous people to actually teach other non-Indigenous people about their place, their space, and where they sit and where they stand within this country.
I actually can't work, but I need to work because I need to be able to support my life. So what do we do? Like, you can't ring up and say, is there someone that can pay me because I've got menopause?
If only.
Like, I can't even get the disability pension and I've got a muscle wasting disease. Like, I'm a quadriplegic and I wouldn't be eligible for that. Not that you can live off it, but you know what I mean? Like, it's so hard because you can't remember how to do things, and then you feel dumb, and you don't want to tell anyone because you're like, well, they're going to just think I'm dumb because I'm disabled. And it's like, no, actually, it's definitely changed my brain.
I'm 57 and I'm still having periods. Is that normal? Because I started bleeding when I was 10. So this is wrong. This is fucked, right? Can we fucking finish now? I'm fucking
turn it off.
And I've never had a baby. It's a fucking waste of fucking everything.
Take it off.
Take it away.
Presenting to a GP, kind of knowing that I was not right, and sort of being sent away with a note that said self-care.
Stop it. Wait, did they know you were a GP?
Yep.
They gave you a note that said self-care?
Yeah. It was a well-meaning female GP, and I did that thing that women do. I led them into saying, I just need to, if I could just do more spin classes. And then my attempt to exercise my way out of it also failed, found myself crying on the spin bike. Right, it's time to get a bit more help. Ended up seeing a psychiatrist, and she was brilliant because she actually wouldn't stop. I felt a little bit better and expected to be discharged, but no, she's kind of looking at me and, but when were you last really well? And I'm kind of thinking back, how many years was it? Anyway, it was a real learning experience for me because she didn't want me to be just a bit better or coping or managing. She actually wanted me to be well, and I ended up really well.
There's so much great stuff there, and I really hope to deliver you a YouTube video series where you can meet each guest in their own little cut-down version of the interview. But to make that happen, we're going to need a few more tips, a couple of T-shirt purchases, or maybe even a sponsor. Get in contact via email on emrusciano.com or hit up our store and buy some Rage Against the Vagine merch at the emrusciano.store. Link in show notes. May I never say that sentence again. Now, Leanne said another thing that really resonated with me, besides the perimenopause Me Too moment message. She acknowledged the personal cost of doing this work. And I really appreciated that because it's not something many people think about. To be honest, I did actually touch on it myself in my closing thoughts during the time capsule chat. I feel like sometimes a lot of the people who engage with stuff I make feel entitled to it, and I don't know that many people think about the personal cost it takes on me as a human person, as a mother of 3, as an autistic ADHDer, as somebody going through perimenopause, very, very much so. Especially we were able to, fund the project through the community, and I think that made me feel better about making it because people valued it. They valued me. They understood that this was going to be a big ask of me and my team. And yeah, I guess what I would ask is once this thing is done, be really proud of it and share it and own it and be a part of the change. But I did go through and I have this year especially had to reassess the stuff I'm making. And when it came time to making this podcast, I was initially just going to pay for it myself, like I did with Anomalous. And then I kind of realized that I'm not walking the talk for myself, that I'm not valuing myself, that I'm putting a product out that will be of enormous value to people, and I can keep it pure and me and us if I don't involve big pharma, if I don't involve certain companies that might have an agenda. So to my own detriment, and because I want to protect my audience, I was going to take it on myself, but I can't do that. I have a mortgage. I have car payments. I like all of you. And I think sometimes people forget that about someone like me in the public eye. So this project's really special, and it's probably the first time I've really drawn a line in the sand, which is what I'm trying to get everybody else to do who listens, and said, no, you know what? You're going to pay for this. It's valuable. I believe in the project. I believe in myself. I believe in you all, because my whole job depends on people liking me. My whole job depends on people picking me. It's terrifying and exhausting trying to find different ways to appeal when all you want to do is tell everyone to get fucked. So I think, yeah, I don't even really know what the point of all of this is, except to say this has come at a great cost to me. I'm not financial even, more just the mental load of taking this on while I'm living it as well, while I'm also writing my book and running my studio and running my family and trying to, fight for survival every day in a world that assaults all of my senses. So take real special care of this project when it comes out, and take ownership of it, especially if you are in the committee. I need your help. I need everybody to get on board and get this message out. I think, yeah, that's the main thing I guess I wanted to say. That made me really uncomfortable to listen to, because I sound like, I'm just like saying, shut up, stop complaining. And I do want to acknowledge people have it way harder than me. I'm in a position of privilege many times over, but she speaks the truth. Even though she sounds a bit whiny, she does speak the truth, April M. Now I'm at the other side of it. It took more from me than even I was expecting it would back then. It really has. And yeah, it's a hard thing to talk about, because people view, if you've got a platform and you're in the public eye, no one's very tolerant of any complaining. And I'm very conscious of that. Very conscious, but I am a human and I live my life like all of you do. So, interesting. I'm just trying to, assess all the emotions I'm feeling after hearing that poor me section. Anyway, having said all that, and you can hear how uncomfortable I feel, the core of this project has been a message of self-care and self-advocacy, and not apologizing for taking up space, and not shrinking to be a good girl. And I think I probably just did that. But you know what? It's complex. I'm an onion. There's layers. There's nuance. But I am actually really proud of asking this community for help and support. Not help. I mean, you didn't get nothing from it. To invest, to be producers. Thank you so much. And we knocked back, a couple brands that just didn't feel right. Just so you know. God. Anyway, hopefully you've understood the idea and the message behind valuing your time, noticing where you spend your energy, protecting it. Anyway, perimenopause is messy, complex, and different for each of us. I'm so fucking tired, guys. It's nearly over, Tara. Leave all this in. I don't even care. Leave the fact I'm tired in. This doesn't have to be a tired edit. This is real. I'm exhausted. By the time this comes out, you will all have heard that I'm also no longer married. So that happened during the recording of this entire project. Oh my God, how am I still? I'm so tired. All right. Okay. This postscript was meant to be just a short little warm down, and it's ended up in me in a heap again. But hopefully you got a stretch, a bit of reflection, and maybe even some excitement about what's coming next. A man-skewed mini episode, and also the chance for a series 2 to meet more of our great guests. This might be the end of season 1, but it's really the beginning of something much bigger. Thank you very much for your support, for listening, for sharing, and being a part of the change. And on that note, before I absolutely keel over from exhaustion, I'm going to go and practice some self-care. I might put on a fresh pair of undies and have a shower. Who knows? Ring-a-ding-ding. I'm going to go. Once more, this has been life-changing, life-affirming, and soul-destroying. Cool measures. Tara Carlon sits over in the corner, cowering, hovering. My EP. Thanks to Zeke, obviously, as well, for putting it all together. Make sure you keep the productive, reproductive rage going. And if you miss me, if there's any chance that you do miss me, don't forget my book, Blood, Sweat and Glitter, which I was also writing during the making of this podcast, is available for pre-order and out at the end of October. My other podcast, Emsolation, will still be there for you each week. And there's lots of life chaos happening in there. Don't worry about it. And I have a live show, if you're in Melbourne, October the 18th, where my band and I will be performing at the Forum Theatre. You'll get to also see the incredible Michael Painter, Gemma Ricks and Ruben Kay, all joining me as special guests on the night. There's still a couple tickets left on the dance floor. We're calling them standing dancing tickets. You can find all that information, though, on my Instagram or at my website, emrusciano.com. All right, Rages. See you soon. This has been a Down the Hill Studios production, created and voiced by me, Em Rusciano, with my incredible team. Executive produced by Tara Carlon, edited and composed by Ezekiel Fenn. Rage Against the Vagine is made to be shared, replayed and used as a resource, especially by those who need it most. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, rate and leave a review. It helps us reach more people who need to hear these conversations. And if you share it, please credit us and keep the conversation and the productive rage going.
Release the rage with Emsolation.
What a tease!
Woo!
Get even more Em Rusciano.
I've been auditioning gynecologists for the girls.
Auditioning by going to them themselves?
I haven't literally been going in and saying, here you go, here's one that's at ground zero. What can you do for it?
And her best friend since she was 11, Michael Lucas.
I do not think it's the best soundtrack ever.
Frozen 2 is the superior Disney soundtrack.
For me...
Beauty and the Beast.
No.
Oh, I was wrong.
Has to be The Little Mermaid because...
I see you.
Part of your world... unmatched. But then also, Poor Unfortunate Souls. Untoppable.
Under the Sea.
The opening number, Fathoms Below.
The Triton, great Father who loves us and names us well. I mean, you can't beat that.
Another brilliant number.
Les
Poissons.
It's not just a podcast.
We didn't even get to talk about how high-cut J-Lo's leotards were at World Pride.
It's a community.
A little bit more feminist.
Equality has been achieved.
Emsolation with Em Rusciano.
Sadly, I could not play a high school student. Apparently.
That's certainly not what I think.
Every Thursday on your favourite podcast app.